there's this taboo in our society that says that we're just not allowed to know who we really are. Because if you ask somebody, who are you really? They'll say things about their personality or what they're doing in their life or their self-identity or some deeper parts of their emotions. And all that is real, and all that's a certain level of reality. But the thing that nobody's going to say, or hardly anybody, is truly acknowledge that they are the Christ being manifest as you. That's what Christ means. It means the divine power manifest as you, manifesting through a human form. There's so many little circuits in us that go off and go, you're not allowed to do this, stop, shut that down, like all these things. I call that the taboo. It's the taboo against knowing who we are. And it's so strong. And so I just welcome you. Like this gathering, when we come together like this, is a chance to loosen the iron grip of that taboo and to feel the permeation of your true self, like in your body. And just like get used to it, like memorize what it feels like. Because as far as helping with the situation in the world, like what's going on and what is so obvious in the news and the challenges that are happening as we're moving into the election in 5 days from now, again, my belief is that being in our true self energy and just having the courage and gutsiness to be that and to radiate it and hold that, and to not let other voices take over is one of the best things we can do. Because then if there's actions to take, when we're in our true self, like to whatever extent we're like really anchored in that vibration of this pillar of light that we are, then those actions or those contributions take on a much greater power. And there's more of a miraculous quality to them. So I've been thinking a lot about and feeling a lot about, well, what is it in me that stands opposed to me being who I really am? Like what is that taboo? Like how's it wired? Like what's the mechanism or technology of it? But what my understanding is that the slave self is something that's not a real part of us. Like there's a difference. Like we have wounded parts of ourself, like our inner child or different traumas we carry, and parts of us that need a lot of love and healing. That's not the slave self. That's parts of us, parts of our humanness. The slave self is like a kind of implant. It's something that we have taken on that allows us to be controlled and manipulated. And it makes absolutely sure that we don't fully acknowledge and claim the I am presence that we are. That's its job. And there's a lot of very powerful manipulating people in this world who know how to tap into the people's slave self. And some of it is like relatively benign, like let's say advertisers selling, Levi jeans. They know how to do advertisements that touch somebody's insecurity about looking good in their jeans, and that's more benign. But then there's some very, less benign ways that it's being tapped into. And at this time of the election, there's like such overdrive of a lot of this going on, like appealing to the fears and the tribal passions and the polarized feelings and just hyping those up as much as possible. And all that is the slave self, all those experiences strangely combined with real, genuine human feelings and things that are real to us. So it can seem very convoluted. But basically, what I feel the slave self is the part of us that will lower our vibration when we pay attention to it. If I can make it as simple as possible. A long time ago, I came to the conclusion that as far as morality, like what's right and wrong, I could boil it down to one thing, and that any activity or thought or experience that raises my frequency, that brings me to a higher level of light and love and consciousness and clarity is good. And anything that lowers my frequency and takes me out of that more into doubt and fear and separation and hang-ups and is bad. And that's all the morality I need. And so if I'm sensitive in each moment, what is this experience taking me? But there's some discrimination needed, because there may be things that we go through that are painful that aren't necessarily the slave self. It's just us healing ourselves. It's just us feeling and exploring courageously aspects of our self. So it takes some discrimination over the difference. It doesn't mean anytime you feel pain, you're going into your slave self. No. Because the word passionate, I looked it up in the dictionary yesterday. Passionate means that you're willing, the literal translation means willing to go through pain in order to do something that you really believe in. That's the precise definition of passionate. And so, yeah, we highly value that. So being willing to go through pain in order to like be in greater truth and accountability and groundedness and to free yourself up and be more empowered is good. The slave self is a little different than that. It's like a repeating, like Groundhog's Day. It's like the Groundhog's Day movies where it kept being the same day over and over and over again. So it's like that Groundhog's Day in our own mind that keeps repeating a certain mantra of, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And I remember somebody just started mentioning that at the beginning of this. I'm not okay. There's something wrong with me. I need to solve problems. I have issues. Like I'm not worthy. Like it's just like a mechanism. It's a technology that's installed that keeps feeding a series of these thoughts that are not genuine in any way. They're not any genuine part of us. It's just literally like having a buggy computer software. And there was a novel I read by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. that was called The Sirens of Titan. I believe that was the one, if I have it right. But there was one part in there where there was these soldiers on Mars who were humans, and they were on Mars. And in order to keep them obedient, the superiors had put some kind of relay in their head that kept just saying, rented a tent, or rented a tent, or rented a tent, and it was always going in their minds, so they couldn't hear their own thoughts. So therefore, they couldn't think any rebellious thoughts, and they were all obedient. And then at one point, a few guys snuck away from the base and went off somewhere in Mars where they got away from it, and they managed to get a hold of some alcohol, and they drank enough alcohol to get so drunk that they couldn't hear the rented a tent sound in their minds anymore. And they took notebooks and wrote down things that were true that they could barely remember through all that noise in their head. And when I read that back when I was a teenager, I just had this like, whoa, this huge energy rush. I recognized that, yeah, there's something to this. There's some kind of thing playing in us that's trying to drown out that small, still voice of our true self, of our deepest heart and soul. And it can't do it all the time, but it does it a lot of the time. And I believe that's the slave self. That's what I experience it is. So after having that big clearing on Tuesday, I saw it presenting itself over and over in the ways that normally in the past I would allow it to bring my vibration down and then have to do all this meditation and effort to bring it back up again. And I just felt such a determination, like, okay, this time I get it, I see it. I'm not going to play this game anymore. And I can't say I've been perfectly successful at that, but more than before. It's sort of like I see that and I go, I am done. And yet it is quite hard to let go of something you've been addicted to all your life, that's been your companion all your life, even if it's been a really crappy companion. Because as I let go of my slave self, there was this feeling of emptiness, like I don't even know who I am anymore. Almost like I lost my identity. But then again, all the spiritual masters have said being in the silence and being in the emptiness is a very high state. So I guess I have to get used to that more. It's like kind of like you hear about these stories about women who are battered by their boyfriend or husband, but they don't leave because at least that's a familiar pain, and going out and being empowered on their own is much more terrifying than staying there and being battered. And there's a lot of these analogies are true for how the slave self has affected us. Something we've all know, that there are billions and billions, I guess there's like 8 or 9 billion people in the world, and the people who are controlling, who are tapping into the slave self to amass wealth and power are just a tiny amount of people compared to that. Maybe a few thousand people in the world that are actually those high-level controllers. And the only reason that small number of people is able to control all those billions is because the billions are listening to the slave self. They haven't claimed their power yet, or still not awakened to this yet. For us to get that this is what it is, it would break the power of all that dark control very, very quickly. I was also thinking of the story Gulliver's Travels, where Gulliver was in this, I might have mentioned this in another class, but I'll say it anyway. You know, when you're over 60, it's okay to repeat your stories, I think. But Gulliver was traveling in some land of the Lilliputians. When he woke up from a nap, he was tied down with hundreds of little ropes, and these little miniature people that were like this size compared to him were all exulting, "Yeah, we caught the big monster, we caught him." And at first Gulliver was terrified. "I've been captured and tied down." But then once he just tried to sit up, all the ropes just popped all over the place and just disappeared, because he really had all the power. Those people couldn't do anything to him. And I feel that's what it's like. So in this time that we are in, of this huge historic election in the United States, for us to claim our power of being the Christ beings on earth and embodied. And then if you say that and you hear a little voice going, "Oh, I'm not that, I'm not there yet, I'm not good," just say, okay, I'm not giving my power to that anymore, because this is the truth. We are these divine beings in human form. That's the truth. It's not something we have to earn. It's not something we have to gradually evolve into. And it's not something like you have to pay a certain amount of money to be in level 1 and then a year later, let's do level 2. No, it's right now. It's done. It's a done deal right now. So claiming that, not just intellectually, but in a bodily felt sense and like in the heart, this is what we're up to. This is what the opportunity is. So I'd like to welcome everybody on this Zoom right now, just to reflect on that a moment. What part of you can you identify that could be a slave self that you've been giving power to, that's held you back from being in full manifestation and your purpose and your light and your presence and your ability to make a difference on the planet? It's very hard to look at. It's very hard to look at these truths sometimes, that how far down the rabbit hole we've been with some of these things. But this moment is always the time where we can just make a different decision, because we have free will. And I feel like, as far as what I can do to help the United States and my fellow people here, there's a lot of things, a lot of different levels. But the one I feel that's the highest level is to free myself from slavery, and really be diligent about that, really be passionate about that, and be willing to break my addiction to those old patterns. And then, to the extent I do that, be the light, be the presence. And as we hold this light and receive this transmission, when you become aware of any parts of your body or your mind that are hurting or feeling resistant or feeling tense, that's perfect. You just simply hug those areas inside yourself and just send your love and light to them, because that's another form of service. You're getting to dissolve some knot. And you could spell that K-N-O-T or N-O-T. It would be accurate either way. Dissolving a knot within you. That helps to free the knots of lots of other people that you're connected with. So whether you're feeling bliss and joy now, or feeling like there's painful things you're feeling, it's perfect. Either way, you're right on track and serving. Isn't that cool? There's no way to be blowing it with us. It's mainly body consciousness. The body is the part that is always in truth. The mind can be very deceived. What I'd like to propose is that we've talked about the slave self, and we've heard some wonderful perspectives here, and I like how strong people are talking, like Suzanne and Deborah and, Shelby, like you're just really, telling like it is. We actually have the power to, just in the next few minutes, to just be in this transmission where we actually release the slave self. Would you like to do that? There's no actual instruction for this. It's not like I'm going to give you a technique to do. Just feel the sovereign part of you. Just relax, just be in your core, and just find that power inside of you that you definitely know it. Regardless of how much we struggle with these different things, you know what this is. And just feel that power in your core. It's like a deep intention like what I'm feeling now is there's just like this deep intention where I'm just saying yes to the transmission, the Christ transmission that I am. And you're not receiving my transmission, you're bringing through your own. So this is a chance to feel it and just have the intention in your heart. I am releasing my slave self programming. Everything you start with the words I am, you're speaking as the highest power there is. If you have different words you want to say, you follow those. But I'm choosing to say, I am now freeing myself of slave self-programming. I am claiming my sovereignty. And then just feel this, like feel it. It's a thickened energy. It feels like a crystalline energy that I just feel permeating us. Breathe it in. Me to whatever this is. I'm giving you suggestions, but your sovereign self has to choose it if you want it. You breathe it in. Breathe it into the places in your body that have hurt sometimes, that have felt like constricted because of the slave self. Breathe it into those places. And just keep it attuned to pure love, to divine love. And everyone here knows what that is. Everyone's equally qualified to do that. And then drop your shoulders a little more. Give up any efforting for this. Just really, on an experiential level, get what your Christ transmission is. It's always been there all your life. It's just a matter that we've had so many voices drowning it out. And the conditions on our planet now are supporting us to amplify it more and to feel it more and to embody it more. That is, it's much easier than it was 5 or 10 or 20 years ago or 40 years ago or whatever it was. And it's going to get even better. It's going to keep getting more and more accessible. But we have to choose it. Just find the deepest place inside of you that is ready for freedom, to declare your freedom from the slave self. You know, there's old stories that if you take a wild bird and capture it and put it in a cage, it'll fight furiously to get out of the cage. And then finally it becomes so resigned to being in the cage that if you open the door to the cage, it will just sit in there, it won't even fly away because it's become beaten down and so used to being in the cage. It lost its love of freedom. So let's not be like that. If we are, just bring ourselves back from that. Breathe this transmission of crystal light into every cell in your body. And intend that it goes to the level of the DNA, to liberate your DNA from any slave and programming that's happened to your DNA. I can tell you for sure that there's a part of you that is a liberator. That's a healer. That's a master healer, which is somebody who helps other people to be liberated. Not by doing it for them, but by holding a space and bringing the field, or like being a catalyst, like really being a catalyst for other people to claim their freedom. That's what a master healer is. So feel the part of you that's already a master healer. You don't have to you don't have to be qualified or do it in the future. That already is that. It's just part of who your true self is. Just feel like the planks and burdens and armoring and all these things just falling away to whatever extent you can allow right now. It's good to memorize this feeling, memorize this vision, however you perceive it. I am here, I am here, I am here. That mantra is one of the quickest ways to align to your true self. I am here, I am here, I am here.